What's going on? Welcome to the Shonee Jackson Show. Thanks for joining. Not too much on the intro today, as you would expect. We're going to talk about the dog shit, deplorable Dallas Cowboys, their defense, what's next for them the rest of the season, what we can expect, and how I think it's going to end, how we all think it's going to end, quite frankly. I'm going to do a scan of the rest of the NFL from yesterday, review a few of the games, players, quarterbacks, Caleb Williams last night. And then a little discussion about the top quarterbacks in the NFL, where they stand. I mean, the top paid, the highest dollar quarterbacks in the NFL, and where they stand record wise through 2 weeks of the season. And then a little change of the programming this week. I'm going to do college and pro on both episodes each and every week. And instead of doing a college show and a pro show, we will do a review of the weekend's games and things that are happening around the country in college football and in the NFL. And on the later week show, we will do a preview of the upcoming games and more of a prediction style show there. And I'll still get out the Shonee the Money Pick'em show, which was awful this past week. But that's neither here nor there. So we're going to have an NFL discussion. Going to talk about the Cowboys, Caleb Williams, the top dollar quarterbacks in the NFL, what their records are through 2 weeks so far of the season. And then obviously college football. The Longhorns, Quinn Ewers injury, the Longhorns being the number one team in America, first time since 2008. Arch Manning, obviously, and then a review of the rest of the games that went over this weekend. Colorado, Colorado State, Georgia, Kentucky, LSU, South Carolina, Wisconsin, Bama, Florida A&M, and a discussion of officiating in college football this past weekend. So let's go ahead and get into it, huh? Let me get my notes back ready. And talk about this humiliating performance from the Dallas Cowboys at home yesterday against the Saints. I think our last two games at home, including the Green Bay playoff game. Now this one, we've given up about 100 points and a million yards of offense. So let me show you a play right away just to show you what the game looked like yesterday. Show me one player on this play that doesn't get their fucking ass whooped. Play it for you. Find one player on the defense that doesn't get their ass whooped on this play. I mean, you want to talk about getting reached? You want to talk about just getting reached and dominated, linemen getting to the second level with no issue. DeMarvion Overshown right there. That's everybody's favorite guy. I love DeMarvion Overshown just as much as the next guy. He played 18 snaps yesterday. It's a big talk. It's a big talking point for all Cowboys fans. Demo not playing enough snaps yesterday after having such a good Week 1 performance. I know everybody that's a Dallas Cowboys fan thinks that they're the smartest person in the world, and they think that they're smarter than our defense coordinator and Mike Zimmer, who's been doing this for about 3 decades now. But yesterday was not a game for DeMarvion Overshown to play a lot. I'll tell you that for free. Yesterday was not the day to give him 50 snaps, and you're going to see why on this play right here. We were in a lot of base yesterday, base 4-3, playing a little 4-2-5 as well. And not a lot of nickel packages, which is why you didn't see DeMarvion all the time. Well, this is way too easy, making it way too easy on the guard to block you. And listen, he doesn't get any help from his edges or defensive tackles. Nobody got any help from them the entire game. I saw receivers pinning edges all game long like it wasn't nothing. Pin pull action with the tackle pulling out, going up and eating a linebacker or safety or whoever came down and whoever he met. But you can't make it this easy as a linebacker to get blocked either. So let me tell you 2 things about the run game. If your defensive tackles get mauled, your edge guys get pinned or blocked with ease, and your linebackers make it really easy to get blocked, you're going to give up a million yards rushing like you did yesterday. Saints had 190 rushing yards. It felt like they had 490 rushing yards. Felt like they could have had 490 rushing yards. That's what it looked like all game long. I mean, DeMarvion just easily blocked out of the play. He walks into the end zone. There's not a player on this team that didn't get blocked here. Not a single player on the defense that doesn't get blocked. Here it is in slow motion. Just eaten alive. Every single player gets their ass whooped. That's what it was for 4 quarters. This is not a schematics issue. This isn't a Mike Zimmer issue. This is a personnel issue. These defensive tackles got eaten up all game long. Don't even need the double team. I mean, there's supposed to be a double team right there. Not necessary. He could have gone and found somebody else. He could have gone and just destroyed one of those players if he wanted to. Double team's not necessary. Everybody gets reached. Everybody gets blocked out of the play. That's what the Dallas Cowboys looked like yesterday for 4 quarters, start to finish. First drive of the game, when Alvin Kamara scored that touchdown. I don't have the clip pulled up, but Jordan, what's the fucking the defensive tackle we just signed. I can't even remember his name right now. But he got blocked into the end zone, 6 yards into the end zone. or they were on the 5 yard line. And our defensive tackle got blocked into the end zone. Anytime that happens, it's not good. You're in for a long day. I saw that and knew right away what type of day this was going to be. Next offensive play, the Saints go out there. The Cowboys are in cover 2. That's 2 high safeties. The receiver, the speedster, what's his name? Rashid Shaheed. 7 receptions for 169 yards so far this year, 24.1 yards per reception. He had 96 yesterday against the Cowboys on 4 receptions. His touchdown where he just torched the defense, we had 2 high safeties, and he just ran right by both safeties. Donovan Wilson, Malik Hookers had their eyes in the backfield, weren't even paying attention for a part. Kalen Carson didn't get any jam whatsoever on the play. Shouldn't matter anyways when you got 2 high safeties. He runs right by him. That was the most pathetic, deplorable excuse of a performance that I've ever seen from a defense in my lifetime, and I've seen a lot of bad ones in the last few years, a handful of them, and before that in the Jason Garrett days, the Rod Marinelli days. There's been a lot of bad days defensively. Of course, the first year under Mike McCarthy, where we had the worst defense in the history of the Dallas Cowboys organization. That was really bad. That was the most miserable 4-quarter experience of my life because they duped us again. They duped me once again. I thought that this would be a top 5 defense this year, and the problem is, personnel-wise, there's going to be games where we match up against teams, and this defense looks like a top 5 defense, the way it did against Cleveland. We'll play some bad quarterbacks, or we'll play some quarterbacks that can't deal with the confusion of Mike Zimmer's scheme, and they don't have necessarily as dominant of a running scheme that the Saints will have this year. And let me tell you this, before I just go scorched earth on the Dallas Cowboys for however long I'm going to do that for, the Saints are really good. They look really good. They have outscored opponents. I have it written down here somewhere. 91-20 in the first 2 weeks. I completely discredited everything that they did a week ago. I was just like, they played the Panthers. The Panthers suck. Fuck them. That ain't nothing. They played the Panthers. They said, no, I think the Saints are really good. And it's important to know. Like, this is a team that's in total cap hell. They have no chance to go sign anybody. But, and I thought that would matter this year. But it really doesn't. This league is designed and built for every team should have a chance to make at least one run every 5 years. And I think this Saints team might be built perfectly. I was looking at them, like I said, they played the Panthers week 1. Didn't expect anything of them there. They got Derek Carr at quarterback. Dennis Allen is their head coach. There's too much to point at with that team. Like I said, total cap hell. They weren't good a year ago. Their entire franchise hates their starting quarterback and Derek Carr. Now they love him. I get it. That's how sports works. It flipped. There's too many things to point at and joke about with the Saints in my eyes that I discredited everything that they did in week 1. They're really good. Clint Kubiak running their offense. It's another Shanahan disciple. His scheme looks phenomenal. They're running right through teams. They've scored on all but like 2 offensive drives this entire season. They scored on every single drive. And not just scoring touchdowns on every single drive, but 1 or 2 drives. They had a field goal on one. They had an interception on another. Then they just turned around and got an interception right back from us. You don't do that unless you're really, really good. Even if our run defense is just the worst run defense of all time and pathetic and humiliating and a joke, and everybody should be on the trade block. The entire team should be on the chopping block. You can just burn the boats in Dallas and restart for all I give a shit. There's nothing worth writing home about. There's nobody on this team to be happy about. There's nothing to look forward to. We're going to win games this year just in spite of understanding the fact that we're going to get destroyed to end the year, whether it's in the playoffs or it's to knock us out of the playoffs and just be a middle-of-the-road football team. That's how it's going to end for us, whether it's against the Saints again or another team like them. The Niners, they lost this week. The Cowboys, the Niners, and the Lions lost this week. Only one of those was not competitive, and that was the Cowboys game. It was completely pathetic defensively. Let me look at some of the team stats in this game while I'm talking about it. Saints had 432 total yards of offense to the Cowboys 353. Let me see. Passing, the Saints had 242 yards, 11 for 16 passing, 14.2 yards per completion. That's what you're able to do when you have 190 rushing yards on 39 attempts, 4.9 yards per carry. Like I said, it felt like it could have been 490 rushing yards. I think at any point in the game, even if we were perfect offensively, and I'll get to them and maybe some issues that arrived there with not having any weapons or some stuff that Dak Prescott did yesterday, but and no run game. But even if we were perfect offensively and scored on every single drive, if we got points on every single offensive drive yesterday, we still were probably going to lose this game. It does not matter what we did offensively. That's defense is so fucking deplorable that it doesn't matter, and it's a wash until proven otherwise. Yeah, 39 rushing attempts for 5 yards per carry is ridiculous. I feel like if the offense did score on every possession and the Saints got the ball last and had like 10 seconds left, they could have just run a sweep instead of a Hail Mary and scored a touchdown and beat us. Like, that's how pathetic this defense is. Let me show you that highlight again of just everybody getting their ass whooped. Like, this was 4 quarters. 4 quarters of football yesterday. Jordan Phillips, by the way. That's who I couldn't think of his name. I drew a blank. As I should draw a fucking blank on his name because that's what he is. He's a blank name at this point on this roster, just like every other defensive tackle on this roster for the last decade. A blank, meaningless, replaceable name. Jordan Phillips, who actually didn't look bad last year for the Bills, played a lot of the same teams we played. We brought him in. I anticipated him to fill a need, fill a hole, along with the other defensive tackles that we brought in this year, and the Saints proved that to be wrong. Really right away. First drive of the game, Jordan Phillips got driven into the end zone from the 5-yard line and put on his ass, and I knew that we were in for the longest day of my life. It's the worst 4-quarter experience of my life yesterday. Pathetic. Every time I close my eyes at night, I see Alvin Kamara doing this, tiptoeing into the end zone. Every time I close my eyes, this is what I see. Fucking him doing this all game long, tiptoeing into the end zone, dropping it in, and all these Dallas Cowboys just pathetically running behind him. Look at that. Nobody wants to make a play on this team. Nobody wants to make a play on this team. And so much for not letting Micah Parsons getting taken out of every single game, because that's what we did yesterday, right? Didn't play him off the ball at all for what I saw. Didn't play him at the will, didn't do anything else with him. Just let him get completely taken out of the game just like this. Watch this. Get blocked out. Get blocked out of the play, Micah Parsons. I hope you get a lot of listeners on your podcast today. And yeah, I'm taking it there. I'm not a ridiculous fan. I've called Micah Parsons the best football player in the world for years. I've said that all the way into the season. I said it into last week. I still believe he is the best football player in the world. But when you do a podcast and you do all this distracting shit and you're constantly creating headlines off the field by doing that, he's not a bad guy off the field by any stretch of the imagination. But when you do your own podcast the day after we get humiliated like this, and I don't know if he's even doing it or putting it out this week, but that's going to be the first thing on First Take this year. That's going to be the first thing you see on all the televisions, and you're going to piss your fan base off. That's the way it works. And that's the way it's always worked. That's the way it's always going to work. We've gone 30 years without doing anything respectable in this league. We're a laughing stock to everybody because of that. This is what it looks like to end the year every year, and I'm glad it happened in week 2. I would rather this happen every single week than any fugazi bullshit, lying to ourselves all year long and then get in the playoffs and give up 1 million rushing yards and 5 rushing touchdowns. Because that's what we do. Let's talk about specific players and position groups. I already said the defensive tackle and edge players were completely deplorable and terrible. Watch them get pinned, reached, and mauled all game long. The linebackers, they overrun too many plays. Everybody's favorite player, DeMarvion Overshown. Got to be hard on him. I was bragging about him all last week, bragged about him all preseason, training camp. Every chance that I get, I'll brag about him for the rest of his career. I love DeMarvion Overshown as a player. I love his story. He's got a long way to go. He overruns plays way too often. Eric Kendricks was overrunning plays. Leafau was overrunning plays. If they weren't overrunning plays, they were getting blocked out of plays. There was one play where I saw Eric Kendrick fight off 3 different blocks. It was too bad that it was just a little... just wasn't quite enough because nobody else on the team fought off a block on that play. I think it turned into another touchdown for Alvin Kamara. I don't have every clip pulled up. I haven't done that. There's enough people that do that for the Dallas Cowboys right now. I'll let them do that. I talk about more than just the Dallas Cowboys, so I don't got time to do that. I'll let them do the film breakdowns, and I'll pull the clips that I can find in the meantime. But you saw the whole game yesterday. They got dominated. They overran every single play. If they didn't get overran, they got blocked out way too easily. And now they didn't get any help from their defensive tackles and edge guys. Nobody ate up blocks. Nobody ever kept any of our linebackers clean. But even if they did, it seems like our linebackers would have overrun these plays anyways. Our safeties totally sucked in every way that they could suck yesterday. Donovan Wilson and Malik Hooker are both on the chopping block in my eyes. They can get replaced. They can get traded for a pack of Skittles for the way that they played yesterday. I don't care about any other game. That was deplorable. Cover 2 coverage. You get just run right by the fastest player on their team. You knew he was fast coming into the game. You knew his fucking name again. I keep drawing blanks on name. Rashid Shaheed. You knew how fast he was. He's like the 2nd or 3rd fastest player in the NFL. You know that coming into the game. You're in a coverage to protect you from that. They run a play action bomb, and it was like Derek Carr didn't even fucking hesitate to throw it. You don't think he saw the 2 high safeties? He did not give a shit that there was 2 high safeties. Wanye Thomas and Marquise Bell and whoever else, they should have a shot because the safeties were completely pathetic yesterday. All right. Got burned in too high coverage, like it was too easy yesterday, and they didn't do anything in the run game either. Right? The Dak conversation is completely annoying at this point. I don't want to see another tweet about, oh, I'm sure this is Dak's fault too, anytime the defense gives up a touchdown. Nobody in their logical mind is blaming Dak Prescott for the loss yesterday. Nobody is blaming Dak Prescott for giving up 1,000 rushing yards. No one's blaming him for giving up 49 points or whatever it was the Saints ended up with. It was 42 or 49. 44. Nobody's blaming Dak Prescott for the 44 points given up by our defense yesterday. Even if Dak Prescott was perfect a day ago, we probably still lose the game or come close to losing the game. That said, that doesn't mean you can't critique Dak Prescott, the richest player in the history of the NFL, for missing too many throws, not just yesterday, but through the first 2 weeks of the season, okay? There's been multiple touchdowns left on the board because Dak Prescott lacks the arm talent to make the throws when under duress or off of his throwing platform. He missed multiple first-round throws against the Cleveland Browns that I talked about last week that would have extended drives and probably led to, at the bare minimum, field goals, points for the Dallas Cowboys, if not more touchdowns a week ago. That happened a week ago. I said he's got to clean that up. He didn't clean it up. All right? There is, here's a play kind of under pressure. I got this pulled up. I could have pulled up much better clips than this. But here's an example of Dak Prescott, of what I said, of any of my concerns of making him the richest player of all time. I never said it was because Dak Prescott's not good. I never said it's because he sucked or that there's all these other quarterbacks better and better options just readily available for the Dallas Cowboys to move forward to. I never said that. What I said is I don't think he's incapable of dealing with the roster deficiencies that we will inevitably have if he's the richest player of all time. And then we got two of the richest players, non-quarterbacks in the history of the NFL, CeeDee Lamb, and inevitably going to be that with Micah Parsons, where it's well documented he wants to be the richest non-quarterback in the history of the NFL. So we'll have three of the richest players in the history of the NFL and a quarterback that I don't think will overcome the holes on the roster or the players like Jalen Brooks and Jalen Tolbert and the guys that we're trying to throw the ball to or hand the ball to in this game. I don't think he's going to be able to overcome that. Let's watch this play right here. Steps up in the pocket, got an open receiver, very weak throw. Is there a lot of pressure there? No, there is not. This is a throw that you should be able to step into and make 10 times out of 10 if you are the richest quarterback and football player in the history of the NFL. Now, Jalen Tolbert's dumbass is backpedaling away from the ball instead of coming to it and allows Tyrann Mathieu to get there even quicker, blow his ass up, and knock the ball out. But that said, this is not all on Jalen Tolbert. This is more on Dak Prescott not having the arm strength or driving through the football right here. And I'm not a football guru. I'm not JT O'Sullivan. I'm not trying to create a quarterback page. I'm not trying to create a film breakdown page. That's why I didn't try to find every single clip of every bad throw that I got off the top of my head of Dak Prescott, all right? He missed multiple touchdowns yesterday as well. But here's just one example of where he lacks the arm strength to throw the ball across the field and get the ball there with zip and have the delivery to get an easy first down here. This should have been an easy first down, 28-13 going into the end of the half. This could have changed the course of the game a little bit, all right? You drive through this ball, we get a first down, we're moving, we can go get points knowing we get the ball to start the second half of the football game. These throws matter. You can find throws like this in every playoff game that we've lost. I've reminded you over and over again. Dak Prescott is 17-32 versus playoff qualifiers in his career. I think after yesterday, it's safe to say he's 17-33. The Saints team is going to be a playoff team. They're going to be a Super Bowl contender. If not, we're just one of the worst teams in the league. But they're going to be a playoff team and a Super Bowl contender. This is a very good defense, and the offense and the weapons and everything had let Dak down a couple times in the game yesterday. But he also let them down. He missed CeeDee Lamb on an easy touchdown where he had like at least 5 yards of separation. Should have been an easy touchdown, all right? That's a throw that Arch Manning and Quinn Ewers, who I watch at Texas, make 300 times out of 300 times. I shit you not. That's a throw that the richest player in the history of the NFL should make every single time. He also missed Jalen Tolbert and underthrew him when Jalen Tolbert got behind the safeties on a play. That was a bad throw. He missed an easy walk-in touchdown to Ezekiel Elliott yesterday. That was bad. All right? That any quarterback should make. Yes, he was under pressure, but you're the richest player in the history of the NFL. You got to make that throw. All right, you can't have that. That's just terrible. That's a throw that he's got to make. There's multiple throws that he missed, and you could say that without saying that it was his fault we lost the game yesterday. Both things can be true. I can critique Dak's arm talent and his throwing power or arm strength without saying every loss is his fault and every negative play on the defense or special teams is also his fault as well. Or if he gets hurt or hit a lot and the offensive line doesn't play well or whatever you want to throw out there, if we don't have a running back, if we don't have a running game. But I said that coming into the year. We weren't going to have a running game. Mike McCarthy, even if we do have good running backs and good offensive linemen, is never going to commit to a running game the way you guys want us to commit to a running game. He never has in his career to date, and until he does that, I don't think he ever will. Dak Prescott is very good at the line of scrimmage and very good with his decision making. He might be the very best in the league at the line of scrimmage and with decision making. There's not very many times where he makes the wrong choice of where to throw the ball. That highlight I just showed you was the right choice, and maybe he could have made the decision a little bit quicker. But to be honest with you, I just think he just needed to drive through the ball and make a better throw. That said, like with his abilities at the line of scrimmage, which are very good, and his ability to quickly make the right decision, he lacks the arm talent to ever overcome the roster deficiencies that I'm talking about. And I think that that's just a fact. And there's 10 years of evidence, and there was evidence from yesterday and the week before that suggests that I'm right about that. All right? We lack weapons and offensive firepower that we've had in previous years. We just don't have it. I don't know where we're going to find it. And quite frankly, I don't even think it's priority number one to find more weapons before we find some actual NFL defensive tackles to stop the run. All right? And unless we establish a running game this year, or Dak raises his level to an all-world MVP, something that we have not seen from him yet this year, and something that's not really realistic to ask from anybody, unless he raises his level of play to something that will win him the MVP award this year, we're in a lot of trouble. We're in a lot of trouble. There's just going to be teams that can, personnel-wise and schematically, line up against us and do what the Saints did to us yesterday, and there's not going to be anything that we can do about it. And we'll play defenses that are going to put us in trouble. Yesterday seemed like an absolute grind to get a first down. To Dak's defense, to the entire offense's defense, to Mike McCarthy or whoever else we're going to cast blame at. It's like Dak has to constantly grind at the line of scrimmage. He has to get us into the right play, and he has to make a really good throw on most plays. And that's a fact as well, right? And so that's going to continue every time we play a good defense this year. And this isn't even close to the last good defense that we're going to play. We're going to play another good defense this week in Baltimore, who's 0-2 themselves. But we're in trouble unless we find that running game and Dak somehow takes his level of play to a level we have never seen yet. All right, and that's the truth. On the bright side, Todd Monken is not Clint Kubiak. But on the not so bright side, Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry are playing for their lives, basically, to avoid going 0-3, which is basically a death sentence in the NFL, and they might just run all over us as well. So I don't know. Maybe it's a schematic thing. Maybe that Saints offensive line, their center is just really fucking good and manhandled the lesser players from the Dallas Cowboys, and we're not going to see that every single week. But nonetheless, I don't really see the answer or the light at the end of the tunnel to fix those problems defensively yesterday that we saw against Green Bay, that we saw against San Francisco, Buffalo, Miami a year ago, that was exposed before the playoffs, during the playoffs, and now after the playoffs a year ago. I don't really know where we're going to find the interior defensive linemen or maybe even linebackers to fix those issues when we run into them. So the season's going to be what it's going to be. Unfortunately, I still think that this team can win 10, 11 games. I say unfortunately because it's Fugazi. Right? Like, let's look at the Cowboys schedule. There's teams, one, we're in an incompetent division. So Washington and New York, that might be 4 wins for the Cowboys to get them to 5 right there. We play some other teams. We play the Panthers this year. That's 6 wins for you. I still think we'll beat the Eagles because we match up well against them as opposed to, and schematically, Kellen Moore, again, isn't Clint Kubiak either. The Ravens, actually, this week, who are 0-2, I don't know that it's the same, and I could be completely wrong. The Steelers aren't as daunting of an offense. Their offensive line isn't nearly as good as the Saints' offensive line. So there's a lot of winnable games on this schedule and games where you might just match up better than others. But when we get to the playoffs, there's going to be a Saints there. I mean, the Bucks might dominate us this year. I'm not sure. They look pretty good. Um, whether it's the Niners, whoever it is that we run into in the playoffs, there's just going to be something that we can't overcome. And when I talked about all those Dak videos that I made and consistently brought up his record versus teams, playoff qualifying teams, and how we never beat them, and this is kind of what it looks like in all those games, even if he doesn't really play terribly, this is why. This is why I said we might just be kicking the can down the road with everything that we are doing, and that sometimes you got to go backwards so you can go forwards. And that's something that us as Cowboys fans have to think long and hard of for the rest of this football season and maybe years to come, that it might be time to take an overall just different approach that we've taken for the last 20 years. We've won a lot of games, and we've been above average for a really long time. And contrary to what it seems like after that ass beating yesterday, I still think this team is above average at the very least this season. To get better than above average, or mediocre as some would call it, we're going to have to maybe take a step back and rebuild in different ways than we have. I don't really know how many dominant defensive tackles there are left in the world. I don't know that you even get one every single draft cycle. There's maybe 7 in the league that are pretty competent and good. So, you might need a top 10 pick in these next few years to get that type of linebacker play, defensive tackle play that we need to overcome this shit. I don't really know. But it might just be time to burn the boats, is all I'm saying. You're on the clock. Everybody's on the clock. The entire coaching staff, every player, all 53 of them. I don't give a shit. I'm ready to burn the boats if this happens one more time this season. Let's move on to the rest of the NFL. Let's talk about Caleb Williams real quick. Hero ball in the NFL doesn't work the way it does in college. And that's shown the first 2 weeks of Caleb Williams' career. The Bears are 1-1. They actually didn't play bad last night. Their defense is pretty salty. Caleb Williams got hit a lot, to his defense. He got hit a lot. I don't know if that's just not setting the right protection, or if it's the Bears' offensive line, or if it's both. But he got hit pretty much every single time he took a snap. He was 23 of 37 for 174. There were some improvements. 2 interceptions might have led to the loss ultimately. The Bears' defense was keeping them in this game throughout all 4 quarters of the game until those interceptions came. Those interceptions came on plays where he's probably throwing 75-yard touchdowns in college, but this isn't college playa. This ain't no college playa, as Dirk Nowitzki would say. This is the big leagues, and these players are all really fast, and hero ball doesn't work. So how quickly can Caleb Williams learn to play the quarterback position? How quickly can they get some better offensive line play there over the next few years and help him out a little bit? That'll determine whether this is an abject failure, if Ryan Poles keeps his job, if Eberflus keeps his job, or if Caleb Williams is a major success in this league. 'Cause they do have a really good defense. They got players on their roster. Their offensive line sucks, and Caleb Williams is struggling right now. But does he have the perseverance to overcome that, get better week in, week out, and take this one game at a time? Because he has all the measurables, all the skills, all the talent. He's just far away at the quarterback position, and they don't have an offensive line or anything to really help him overcome that some other players have been benefited with. He doesn't have the players that Brock Purdy has around him. That's the difference in being the number 1 overall pick and Mr. Irrelevant right there. Mr. Irrelevant often ends up on a much better team. Now, I'd say you'd much rather end up with the number 1 pick at quarterback than Mr. Irrelevant, according to history, up until Brock Purdy. But, yeah, it's tough there for Caleb Williams right now. They need to avoid getting him killed, and he needs to learn how to play the quarterback position. On the other end, C.J. Stroud went 23 of 36, 260 with a touchdown. He had a 57.7 QBR, 94.7 rating. I don't really know the difference in that. I don't know why they have them right next to each other and why it's so different. I'm not a nerd. But I thought he played good, not great. Tank Dell had a drop. Let's stop talking about Tank Dell as one of the best receivers in the league. That's one of the cool things going around right now. Oh, one of the best receivers that never gets talked about, Tank Dell. Well, how many best receivers can we have? That's a question I want to ask. Is it 5? Is it 10? Because, if it's 5, Tank Dell is not in that conversation. He had 1 reception for -3 yards. I took his over on the yardage total. I think it was 45 or something like that. He had -3. He dropped a play that would have been a huge gain, maybe a touchdown for him. He had a few carries out of the backfield on some jet sweeps. I think for 16 yards, 5.3 yards a carry. None of those really popped off the way you would like them to. Overall, the Texans' run game only averaged 3.4 yards per carry. I think that Bears defense is really legit, and so is the Texans. And I think it's going to stay that way. I think the Texans are very good. They're contenders. They'll be contenders as long as C.J. Stroud's there. I still think they're a year away from making it to a Super Bowl or really being in that conversation. I think this is a team that'll lose in the divisional round to a Chiefs or a team like that. But hey, they could make a run at it. They really could get to the conference championship or something like that. And it's disgusting if you're a Cowboys fan, right? When it rains, it pours. When it rains, it fucking pours. And the Cowboys are deplorable. The Texans are not. Congratulations, Texans fans. Let's move on to some other games while we're at it. The Chiefs-Bengals games was really good. Bengals gave it away. You feel like they gave it away with a bad penalty at the end of the game. Some other mistakes. Maybe officiating always favors the Chiefs. Well, not maybe. They definitely do. And yet, this is what it looks like for the Bengals. Jamar Chase is absolute poison right now. He had 4 receptions for 35 yards. Caused the team and threw, quite frankly, what we call a temper tantrum on the sideline. And guess what? People are going to keep poking the bear every week that they play him. DBs are going to take shots at him. They're going to do shit after the play. They're going to talk shit to him. As long as he's throwing temper tantrums and acting up, he's going to do that. If I'm the Bengals, I think you look to move Jamar Chase as soon as possible. At what point do you start having that conversation? He held out with multiple years on the contract. He acted like he wasn't going to play the first week. He's been more of a distraction than an asset. Joe Burrow had a good game yesterday. He was 23 of 36 for 258 and 2 touchdowns. He got sacked 3 times, 65.9 QBR. He played pretty good. He had 74 yards rushing. And Jamar Chase is a total distraction. He can get flagged throwing these temper tantrums. Defensively, they did enough to win the game until the very end with that terrible penalty. Patrick Mahomes was 18 of 25 for 151. Got sacked 2 times. He had 2 interceptions. If you tell the Bengals that they were going to do that before the game, they feel good about their chances, and they should have felt good about their chances. This is a game you got to win on the road if you're Cincinnati. The Burrowhead stuff, this, that, and the other, he played good, and you just guys gave it away. Now you're 0-2, and that's tough historically speaking to come back from that, but they are a team that has come back from that, so let's see if they can keep that up. Rashee Rice had 5 receptions for 75 yards, 15 a reception. Xavier Worthy, 2 for 17. So they kept him at bay yesterday. He had 1 carry for 5 yards. Seemed like there was a couple plays he could have made yesterday that they didn't execute on, but that's okay. He'll still have a big year in my opinion. But Cincinnati called him out this week, and they held him at bay like they said. So bravo to them. I didn't think that would be the case. But it doesn't matter, right? You lost the game. Travis Kelce, what did he end up with? 1 reception for 5 yards. Jared Wiley, shout out Sacrifice Training. Shout out to my boy Tuck. 1 reception for 7 yards. He got in the game. You're going to start seeing him a lot more. The Chiefs are 2-0. The Bengals are 0-2. Let's move on. I would talk about the Bills-Dolphins, but I'm going to talk about Tua a little bit later. Bills whooped their ass. The Bills look very good. Moving on from Stephon Diggs. Looks like both parties won there. Josh Allen's looking good through 2 weeks. The Buccaneers are 2-0, beating the Lions yesterday in a good game. The Lions had their left tackle out. Jameson Williams was supposed to be out, but he played. Jared Goff had 307 yards, but he had 2 interceptions. Jamar Gibbs, 13 carries for 84 yards. That's what they like him at. That's a stat line they love there. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 11 receptions for 119 yards. The Buccaneers are 2-0. They look really good. The NFC South is a lot better than anybody thought it would, and that's where the parity exists in the NFL right now. As I said, like every 5 years, you should have a shot at it. And the NFC South looks very good. Buccaneers are 2-0. Saints are 2-0. Who wins that division? Looks like a Saints-Bucks race for the NFC South. Might be a fucking Saints-Bucks race for the 1 seed. And who thought we would be saying that coming into the season? All right, let's have a discussion of what I've talked about for the entire offseason. Big money quarterbacks versus non-big money quarterbacks. Let me pull up the list of top-paid quarterbacks in the NFL and where they sit this year through 2 weeks versus the non-top-paid quarterbacks in the NFL. Because I've said it many times over the offseason. I've gotten lashed out for this take on multiple occasions, whether it be on Twitter, whether it be on YouTube or anywhere else. For people that think that you hear the QB purgatory conversation all the time, that's an overplayed, outdated concept, I think. You hear all that bullshit. I've said coming into the season many times that I think that there is a recipe to winning Super Bowls based off your last 10 Super Bowl champions, and a recipe to not win Super Bowls and maybe just fall just short or be mediocre. And I think that recipe is you have Patrick Mahomes, the best quarterback in the NFL, and you pay him whatever you pay him. He's not even close to the highest paid guy right now. He has a very team-friendly deal, by the way. And you can win Super Bowls year in, year out. Or you pay a guy that can run your system, that fits the scheme that you want to run offensively, can execute it on a high level, and you pay other players along the line of scrimmage on both sides of the field and at important positions that lead to winning championships, and you stack those positions and your depth on the team along the defensive line and at the skill positions, and you chase Super Bowls that way. So let's talk about it. Top 10 quarterbacks, highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL. At the top, Dak Prescott, Joe Burrow, number 2, Trevor Lawrence, 3, Jordan Love, 4, Tua Tagovailoa, 5, Jared Goff, 6, where he's tied for 5th, Justin Herbert, 7th, Lamar Jackson, 8th, Jalen Hurts, 9th, and Kyler Murray, 10th. Dak Prescott's 1-1. He hasn't played terrible since receiving that contract, but he has not played like the best quarterback in the NFL or even close to it. He's 1-1. Joe Burrow is 0-2. Trevor Lawrence is 1-1. Or no, he's 0-2 as well. Let me pull it up real quick. Trevor Lawrence is 0-2. Trevor Lawrence is 0-2. Tua Tagovailoa is 1-1, and he may need to retire. We'll see what he does in that decision. Jordan Love is the Packers are 1-1, but he's out multiple weeks with a sprained MCL, I believe it is. After signing his deal, he did not look great week 1 against the Eagles. That was basically who could play worse game, him versus Jalen Hurts. Jared Goff is 1-1 now since signing that extension. Justin Herbert, I believe, is 1-1. He might be 2-0 under Harbaugh, and I'm high on Justin Herbert. No, they got blown the fuck out 41-10. How did I forget? Because they were playing at the same fucking time as the Cowboys, I think. But no, he just got blown out in the Rams. Or no, that's the Rams. I'm looking at the wrong LA team. I'm sorry. The Chargers are 2-0. They beat the Panthers. The Chargers are 2-0. Sorry, I got carried away there. I got lost in the sauce. That was my ADD. Lamar Jackson is 0-2. Jalen Hurts is 1-0. He plays tonight. Kyler Murray looks great this year. They're 1-1. All right. So out of the top 10 highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL, let's keep going on the list. Deshaun Watson is 1-1, but he's considered to be one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. Patrick Mahomes, the best player in the world. He's the 12th highest paid quarterback in the NFL, and I don't know that that changes anytime soon. He signed a 10-year deal, $45 million a year. Really good deal, and they're chasing a three-peat in the NFL. Kirk Cousins looks like he can't move. He's 0-1. He plays tonight. $45 million a year, tied for 12th. He makes the same amount of money as Patrick Mahomes does a year. Josh Allen looks good as the 14th highest paid quarterback in the NFL at $43 million a year, and they look really good. The Buffalo Bills are 2-0. They just dominated a division opponent. Let's see what he does. Let's see what they do on his extension. I know he wants to get paid top dollar. I'm sure he'll surpass Dak's money. Let's see how they play after that. Daniel Jones is one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. $40 million a year, tied for the 15th highest paid player. Matthew Stafford, they're 0-2 as well. $40 million a year. So, out of the top 15 highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL, 1, 2, as of today, 3, 4 have a winning record. And now it's only 2 weeks. Let's see how it plays out. But out of the top 15 highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL, 4 of them have a winning record through 2 weeks of the season. 1, 2. 2 of them are hurt. 2 of them are completely deplorable in Deshaun Watson and Daniel Jones. Kirk Cousins might not be able to move because of his Achilles injury, and he's like 50 years old. And he makes the same amount of money per year as Patrick Mahomes. And some of these teams are just going to be bad. Multiple of these guys got blown out in week 2 of the NFL season. Matthew Stafford and Dak Prescott got blown out of the water this week. And is it their fault? Probably not. Is it their contract's fault? Probably not entirely. But let's stop acting like it has nothing to do with it. There's a formula that is winning games in the NFL right now. And it is not paying your quarterback $1 more than the last quarterback and falling in line to that philosophy. I feel more confident than ever that the teams that break off of that mold are going to have more success in the near future unless the salary cap structure changes, unless that rumored quarterback salary cap comes into play. Until that happens, the formula to winning Super Bowls is not having the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. The Cowboys, I don't think, have a chance in Hades to win a Super Bowl this season. I don't think they got a chance next season, and I don't really know that they have a chance during this Dak Prescott extension. And it's not all on him. And I think he's going to play at a high level. But he's 17-32, probably 17. Let's call it 17-33 now against playoff qualifiers. 4 of the top 15 highest paid NFL quarterbacks have a winning record this season. Multiple guys got blown out this week. Actually, that's more than 2 guys. 2 got blown out, and he might have to retire. Multiple guys are injured, and we don't know what they're going to look like moving forward. This QB purgatory thing that y'all talk about that exists right around the corner, tell that to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield. Tell that to Derek Carr, who was shit on all offseason long by everybody, including myself. Let's see, who else is winning? Tell that to the Vikings, who are 2-0 with Sam Darnold and just beat the San Francisco 49ers, who are in the Super Bowl and are one of the Super Bowl favorites this year that dominated the Jets in week 1. Tell that QB purgatory to the Vikings, who let their quarterback walk and decided not to pay him. And we looked at him in week 1 and in practice clips, and he might not be able to move properly. Tell that to the 2-0 Seattle Seahawks with Geno Smith. All right? See, who else can we talk about QB purgatory with? The Raiders just beat Lamar Jackson with Gardner Minshew. QB purgatory. Tell that to the 2-0 Steelers with Justin Fields. Now, are they lighting the world on fire? No, but he's not turning the ball over. They're winning games. They're 2-0. Do I think that they're going to win the Super Bowl? No. They'll probably have a winning record. Mike Tomlin, they got an elite defense, that's for certain. And he's going to get better and better. Maybe Russell Wilson adds a spark. I don't know. The Texans have a rookie quarterback. They're 2-0. So let's count the 2-0 records in the league real quick, and then we're going to move on to college football. The Texans are 2-0. They got a rookie quarterback. Chiefs are 2-0. They got the best player in the world, and he's the 12th highest paid quarterback in the NFL, tied with Kirk Cousins. The Steelers are 2-0. Justin Fields is playing quarterback for him on a rookie contract. Chargers are 2-0. They have Justin Herbert. He's one of the higher paid guys. See where he's at on the list. He's tied for 7th. Justin Herbert, Jim Harbaugh. That's the one that everybody likes to hate the most is Justin Herbert, by the way, reminding you. That's the one that everybody compares Dak Prescott to, is Justin Herbert. The Seahawks are 2-0. Geno Smith is their quarterback. The Vikings are 2-0. Sam Darnold is their quarterback right now. They moved on from paying a quarterback. The Buccaneers are 2-0. Baker Mayfield is their quarterback. The Saints are 2-0. Derek Carr is their quarterback. And the Bills are 2-0. And they have the 14th highest paid quarterback in Josh Allen. All right. So out of the 2-0 quarterbacks teams, the quarterbacks are rookie CJ Stroud, Patrick Mahomes, 12th highest paid guy, Justin Fields on a rookie contract with the Steelers, Justin Herbert, he's tied for 7th highest paid guy, Geno Smith, not even on that top 15 in highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL, Sam Darnold, not in the top 15 in highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL, Baker Mayfield, not in the top 15 of highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL. And Derek Carr, not in the top 15 of the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL. Those are your undefeated quarterbacks through 2 weeks in the season. Let's see how it plays out. But stop talking to me about QB purgatory if you don't pay your quarterback. That narrative is a lie. Let's move on to college football. Why don't we? We're on to college football. The Texas Longhorns are the number one team in the country for the first time since 2008. I was in the 6th grade in 2008, the last time the Texas Longhorns were the AP number one team in the country, and they deserve to be the AP number one team in the country. They by far look like the deepest team in America. They've not played with their food at all this year. They've dominated through 3 weeks of the college football season. They've given up a total of 19 points. They won 52-0 against Colorado State. They beat the defending national champions 31-12 on the road. And they just beat UTSA 56-7 at home, right? And in dominant fashion. They play Louisiana Monroe this week. And there's some more news. Quinn Ewers went down in the game. That's very unfortunate. The Heisman favorite this year, but he was ready to go scorched earth in that game. Let me pull up the full box score for you. And there's some context to that. He went down with an abdomen strain. What I'm hearing out of reports from Orange Bloods and others this morning was that he went in there with a little bit of an abdomen issue, but it really wasn't much of a concern. It got worse in the game, obviously, to the point where he had to come out, and he's going to miss this game at least against Louisiana Monroe. And if I had to guess, Sark might hold him out against Mississippi State as well. We got a bye week before Oklahoma. That gives you more than enough time because I think he could come back against Mississippi State. I think he wants to come back against Mississippi State, but he would have a bye week and more than enough time to be fully healed up before we play Oklahoma and Georgia in back-to-back weeks, right? Now, Arch Manning pop is on another level. We're going to talk about that more after this. But, oh, goodness. Quinn Ewers, we're in a situation here where Quinn Ewers, like I said, is the Heisman Trophy favorite. You're silly if you think Quinn Ewers doesn't know that and doesn't want to win the Heisman Trophy. It's been reported now that within the Quinn Ewers camp, they have said that it's very important for him. That's a dream come true, as it is for any player and any quarterback to win the Heisman Trophy. But it's a very realistic possibility for him, and I think it's still a realistic possibility if he misses this game and even the next game. You play Georgia, you play Oklahoma, you got plenty of marquee games on your schedule, and I think that there's going to be plenty of great matchups where Quinn Ewers can put up great numbers like he did against Michigan and like he was going to against UTSA and he did against Colorado State. Multiple times throughout the schedule, we'll be the number one team in America. If you go on and you go undefeated your first year in the SEC, I think you've got a great chance to take that Heisman home. What we can't do is play the Heisman game and get what may go down, and I don't say this lightly at all, may go down as the greatest quarterback in the history of the Texas Longhorns program, get him hurt playing this Heisman game, and then we're dealing with the lingering issue or a season-long issue throughout this first year in the SEC, right, and playing with the redshirt freshman Arch Manning. Quinn Ewers was going to go scorched earth, as I said, against UTSA. He finished 14-16, 185, 11.6 an attempt, 2 touchdowns and an interception. The interception wasn't even a bad decision. That was right after hurting the hand on the touchdown the play before that, and he just selled his running back on a check down, or it might not have even been a check down, might have been the design go-to play. And he sold his running back. They picked it off. We got the ball back 4 plays later, and he went right down the field and scored again. He was dialed and slaying that UTSA defense. That UTSA team got blown out by Texas State. Quinn came into this game. Like I said, he had a little injury before. There's a reason he wanted to play very badly against UTSA. I think he would have broke the touchdown record and maybe the yardage record in this game if he played in it. 14-16, 2 touchdowns. He was going to score on every drive. I'm not shitting you. We were going to throw the ball all over the yard like we did when Arch Manning came in, right? And I want to say this. I want to make this loud and clear. Quinn Ewers is in the most unique situation I think I've ever seen a player in. All right, Arch Manning is a Manning that is the first family of football. I call the Mannings. Every single person in his family that has played the position at the college and pro level is an absolute legend, wherever they play that in college and beyond that. His granddad, Archie, is obviously a legend at Ole Miss. Him and his son, Eli, their mile per hours limits on campus are 10 and 18 to represent the numbers of those two Mannings. Absolute gods at Ole Miss. Peyton Manning is a god at Tennessee. And Arch Manning, as the kids say, already carries that aura, right? So Quinn Ewers behind him is on track to win the Heisman Trophy. He is leading the number one team in America, and he is a major reason that they are the number one team in America. He has done nothing but been elite this season. He took us to the playoffs, brought Texas back. The proverbial is Texas back. Quinn Ewers deserves most of the credit, along with Steve Sarkisian, in getting us back and respected on the level to where we're at now. Number one team in the country, on our way, I think, to have the number one recruiting class in the country when it's all said and done, and on our way to a dynasty potentially with this Texas team and this roster that I think has 40-plus NFL football players on it currently, and more on the way coming in, like I said, in recruiting. He is the leader of that. He's the leader of this team. This is Quinn Ewers' football team. And unfortunately, he has this guy lurking behind him with the last name Manning on his nameplate that has only gone in and dominated every chance that he's gotten to play and gone completely scorched earth himself, right? So I just want to say this, that Quinn Ewers, if and when he comes back and leads this team to the success and the heights that I think he's going to lead them to, he's going to leave this team as arguably the best or the second best quarterback in the history of the program. He has a chance to lead this team and be the only quarterback to win multiple conference championships in modern history for this program, at least since we joined the Big 12 and beyond. And that'll be a Big 12 championship and the SEC championship, which nobody has ever done, obviously, and back-to-back seasons, which is phenomenal. Last year in the Big 12, first year in the SEC. He has a chance to win a Heisman Trophy, like I said, first time since Ricky Williams won one, third Heisman in program history. He'd be the first quarterback to ever do it, and then leave with the national championship. He needs to be treated as such. And I ask all Texas fans to watch this and just Texas fans in general, if you see me say this, if you see others say this, when he comes back, he needs to get that type of pop as well that Arch Manning gets on the field every time. That's all I want to say because he deserves it. He's the best quarterback in America, and he's probably going to be the number one pick in the NFL draft in April as long as he's able to finish this year out healthy. That said, when Arch Manning comes into the fucking field, there is no other way to describe it than this. When Arch Manning comes onto the fucking field, how else do you describe it than right here? Well, Quinn Ewers is the Heisman favorite. He's hurt. Oh no, Quinn Ewers, our Heisman favorite's hurt. Oh fuck, that's Arch Manning? There's no other way to describe it. This pop is the biggest pop since Stone Cold Steve Austin fucking 90s WWE. There's nothing fucking like Arch Manning coming onto the field. You can't find a situation where it's like this. Quarterback goes down, Heisman favorite, on the ground, hurt, take him into the medical tent, backup comes in. Yeah, that's kind of tough to deal with if you're Quinn Ewers, right? Gotta admit, that's the elephant in the room, and yet it's Quinn Ewers' team. But Arch Manning, all he did was come in and go 9 of 12, 223 yards, 18.6 yards per completion, and 4 touchdowns with 1 rushing. 5 total touchdowns in 3 quarters of play. He had a 99.9 QBR. Quinn Ewers left the game 14 of 16, 185 for 11.6 yards an attempt and 2 touchdowns, and Arch Manning still destroyed his QBR in that game. Oh yeah, by the way, and you didn't know that he had it in his bag to take off on a defense? You see the graphic out there that he clocked a faster time than Tyreek Hill has clocked this season? That's a real stat. You didn't know he had that in his bag? I tried to tell you. You should have been watching the SJ show. Yeah, he got the genes from his dad, which was the athletic one in the family. And I think his mom was like a track runner at Ole Miss or some shit like that. They keep saying he gets his speed from his mom. Well, his dad was a Division I receiver, mom track runner, and he's a fucking Manning, right? So, 223 rushing passing yards, 4 touchdowns, and he had 3 carries for 53 yards, 17.7 a carry, and a touchdown. 67 was his long. Obviously, his yardage total goes down because he took a couple sacks. But yeah, no, I mean, it's kind of hard for you to do that with the name Manning on your chest and get any other reaction than this right here. It's kind of hard. But I digress. That's why the Texas Longhorns are the number one team in America. You're looking at quarterback issues around the country, even with the top teams in the country. I look at Alabama. I'm going to talk very highly of Alabama today. I look at Ohio State. I look at the teams that I think that Texas could potentially run into down the line. I'm not going to use Ole Miss as an example because they've played high schools so far. But, every team runs into a point offensively where they haven't been totally dialed this year. We didn't take a step back at all. How do you have your starting quarterback go down that's the Heisman Trophy frontrunner by a large margin and looking like when you're looking around the country at all these other games, you see Georgia and Carson Beck struggling. You see quarterbacks getting benched. You see Teams not pulling away from lesser opponents, not covering double-digit spreads week in, week out. And Texas is purely dominating. Your quarterback, your Heisman favorites, 14-16 with an 85.8 QBR, moving up and down the field, and you don't only not take a step back, you get better when your backup comes in and takes over. He adds a running element to this offense that hasn't ever really existed with Steve Sarkisian, I guess, other than when he had Jalen Hurts. He is vocally said multiple times he doesn't major in the QB run game, and that's going to stay that way. But that running element puts another level of pressure on defenses that they already deal with. Tons of pressure from a Steve Sarkisian offense, and with this Texas unit, it puts another level of pressure and just heightens it. This team is far and above the number one team, and everybody else is trailing well behind right now. They play UL Monroe, and Arch Manning is going to go scorched earth once again against UL Monroe, and the hype around the country is going to reach levels you've never seen. I don't think that I've ever seen something like this. I don't know how to prepare for something like this where you arguably are going to have, statistically speaking, when we get out of this UL Monroe game, it's very realistic to look at the two quarterbacks that play at Texas and say that both guys have played at a higher level than any other starter in America has played. Arch Manning, after that game against UTSA, has the 7th best Heisman odds on some sports books. We have the Heisman frontrunner and the 7th best Heisman odds, and they're both quarterbacks on the Texas Longhorns team. Ryan Wingo had 3 receptions for 127 yards, averaging 42.3 yards per reception through 3 games of his true freshman season. He has 7 receptions for 197 yards, a touchdown, 28.1 yards per reception, and he has a 55-yard carry on 1 carry out of the backfield on a jet sweep. He's a freshman out of St. Louis, Missouri, a true freshman, that is, 6'2", 210 pounds. Rushing-wise, we had 187 rushing yards on 35 carries. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9 different guys logged to carry. Jarrett Gibson led the team with 13 carries on 75 yards. Arch had 3 for 53, like I said. Trey Wisner, 6 for 20. Belton Garner, the transfer out of SMU, had 5 for 15. And a few other guys logged some carries. Quinn had a 7-yard rush. Receiving-wise, Ryan Wingo, like I said, led the team. Isaiah Bond had 5 receptions for 103 yards, 20.6 per reception, and 2 touchdowns on a 51-yard touchdown on that RPO from Arch Manning. We ran that same play twice, both to him. Both a lot of success. Gunnar Helm is the best tight end in the country through 3 weeks of the season. He had 1 reception for 49 yards. Hurdle the guy. He's about 6'7". I don't know how much he weighs. 250, and he runs like he's 6'3". He is a very hard guy to get to the ground. He can hurdle you. He can run around you. He can run through you and over you. He's obviously very hard to cover with that length and athleticism. Jonte Cook had a little coming out party himself. 3 receptions, 35 yards. He had 2 touchdowns. Matthew Golden was 3 for 34. Yeah, this Texas team is really fucking good. They're the number 1 team in the country, and they deserve it. They probably should have been the number 1 team in the country after the Michigan game, but after last week, and Georgia struggled, and Texas did not, it was the easiest thing for the AP poll to do. Made them the number 1 team in the country. Arch Manning will be starting next week. I think Quinn, he will want to be back by Mississippi State. We will see what Sark does with that. We'll see. I think if Arch Manning goes out those 6 touchdowns, it's Mississippi State's getting blown out by Toledo at home. You might just sit him 1 more week, but if he pushes hard enough and he looks great in camp and he's having in practice rather, and he's having no issues, maybe they start him against Mississippi State. He's going to want to play that SEC game. He wants to win the Heisman. That is an element, at least out of his camp. Does it carry on anywhere else? I'm not sure. Let's move on. Let's talk about Colorado real quick. Colorado State absolutely humiliated themselves, and Colorado stood on business, as the kids are saying. I don't have the game pulled up. I should. I thought I did. That's on me. Let me pull it up real quick. It's no sweat. Pull up the game log. Here we are. Colorado won 28-9. Stood on everything. They played better defense today than they've played all year long. I mean, on Saturday night than they played all year long. Shedeur was 36 of 49 for 310 passing yards and 4 touchdowns. It's Quinn Ewers and Shedeur on the QB draft board right now, and there's no other discussion. Carson Beck does not belong in the same sentence as Quinn Ewers, Shedeur, and Cam Ward right now in college football, whether that be Heisman talk, whether that be draft talk. Stop crowning Carson Beck. I don't know why we did that. I asked that question all year long. And I told you guys, he's too horny to play the quarterback position at this elite level. Dayton won the Cavendish sisters. He's sending out horny snaps. He's cool guy with the tattoos and the earrings and the VVS's. He ain't playing quarterback at a high level the way that these guys are playing at. Shedeur looked great, and guess what? I stand on everything Shedeur did, telling that little bitch from Colorado State, Braden Fowler Nicolosi, to piss off and that he can't fuck with him. Braden Fowler Nicolosi and the receiver Torrey Horton. They went out of their way to talk shit to Colorado before the game. They said that they would murder them and should have murdered them a year ago. They mocked their Instagram following and the way that Colorado acts, and they challenged them to see where that would get them in this game. Well, let's pull up the team stats real quick, if you don't mind, and let's see where it got them. Third down efficiencies. Colorado was 4 for 15. Colorado was 5 for 11. Colorado State was 4 for 15. On fourth down, Colorado State was actually 5 for 6, where Colorado was 0 for 1. That's where Colorado's got to clean that shit up. That's where they're too small in the trenches, I think. Total yards, Colorado had 419. The Colorado State's 340. Passing, Colorado is 310 to Colorado State's 209. Shedeur Sanders specifically was just on a different planet than Brandon Fowler Nicolosi was. So why were you talking shit if you're not on the same planet as a player as the player you're talking about? And then you try to go shake his hand. That's not what this is about. There's nothing sweet about this. This is a rivalry game, in-state rivalry game. It's been nasty the last 2 years. Y'all made it nasty. Colorado finished it. Travis Hunter had 13 receptions for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was a man amongst boys. He had an interception as well. Completely dominated Colorado. They tried to take some shots at him, a little cheap shot here and there like everybody does. And he was the best player on the field like he always is. Best quarterback was easily Shedeur Sanders. Colorado sets themselves up moving forward for a little Big 12 run. I don't know what they can do. They got Baylor this week. I think they can beat Baylor. I think they got better weapons than Baylor does, for sure. This is a winnable game. Go beat Baylor. Win the winnable ones. I didn't think Nebraska was winnable. I thought Nebraska had way too good of a defensive line, was too good up front, and that showed in that game. There are 2 games that were winnable. They've won both of them so far. They're 2-1 in the games that they're supposed to win. So give them props where props is due. I was very hard on Colorado. I used that Colorado State as an example of what teams think about them. So don't let that stop fueling you. They've put words in Coach Sanders' mouth, lied about reports of the fucking fight song and all that shit. Well, piss on them. Stay pissed off. Play like this every week if you're Shedeur Sanders, which I expect that he does. Lead your team. Don't give him any bulletin board material. Sorry. I'm fumbling on my words. No bulletin board material as far as throwing teammates under the bus and none of that shit. You can talk shit to other players on other teams. Don't throw your teammates under the bus. Win the games you're supposed to and compete the rest of the schedule. This Colorado team can compete in the Big 12. They can compete week in, week out. They can beat Baylor. They can beat UCF. UCF should give them problems too up front and with their running game, but they can beat them. Maybe not Kansas State. Kansas State might be too much to deal with up front. They can compete against Arizona. They can compete against Cincinnati. They sure as hell can beat Texas Tech. Utah might be too much. They can beat Kansas. And I think they can compete against Oklahoma State, even if Oklahoma State's winning every week. This isn't going to be the disaster at Colorado that I thought it would be for a little bit and that many people are rooting for it to be. And I'm not rooting for it to be. I'm rooting for them to be successful. Quite frankly, I like to troll. I like to bust balls. I don't love watching people crash and burn. I don't love people getting completely humiliated. Unless it's guys like that on the Colorado State team that talk a big game and then try to play holier than thou after the game. No, you mocked their players, their Deion Sanders, their dad. You said he wasn't coming through the tunnel. He wasn't playing for them. Talk shit about their Instagram followers. Colorado State is a joke. And Colorado, all your goals are in front of you. All of your goals as a football team completely in front of you. So good job to Colorado. They're on an upward trajectory. Colorado State, downward trajectory. Piss off if you're Colorado State. Let's move on to the next game. Georgia and Kentucky. Pull that one up. Should have had my shit wired on the college stuff. I don't have every game pulled up like I should. That's on me. Georgia and Kentucky. This game was something else. One, it was very poorly officiated, like many others, and I have a lot to say on that at the end of this podcast and the close on that. But Georgia in general, all right, let's just talk about the stats, the team stats, player stats, and then I'll give you my thoughts on the game and on the Georgia Bulldogs right now. The game ended up 13-12. Georgia beat Kentucky 13-12. Mark Stoops special right here. What a fucking pussy. I talked about it coming into this game. How long are you guys going to accept that? Punting that ball was the epitome of Mark Stoops' cowardly bullshit. You punted the game away, and that was bullshit. Even if you didn't get it, everybody in the world and every Kentucky fan in the world would have lived with you guys going for the ball, going for it there on it. It was like 4th and 4, 4th and 6. You punted the game away. That was bullshit. Anyhow, third down efficiency. Georgia was 5 of 13. That's not good. Kentucky was 9 of 16. Kentucky got 23 first downs to Georgia's 12. Total yardage, Kentucky in a bad offensive game had 284 yards to Georgia's 262. Kentucky had 114 passing yards to Georgia's 160. Carson Beck was 15 of 24 for 160. Trevor Etienne was 19 carries for 79 yards. Dominic Leggett was 6 receptions for 89 yards. He might have should have stayed at Missouri, quite frankly. Let's see. Are there any stats that pop out to me? Turnover battle, Kentucky had 1. Georgia had none. There's a difference maker right there for you. Penalties-wise, Georgia had 9 penalties for 85 yards. Those weren't all good penalties. Kentucky had 4 for 23. One costly one. Wasn't it a face mask that kind of changed the entirety of the game? That was ridiculous. But other than that, Kentucky really fumbled this game away at the end, I believe. But Georgia's in trouble. Georgia is not as deep as they have been, and I said that coming into the season, and I stuck by my guns even after the Clemson game. They're not as deep defensively or across the board as those national championship teams were. Carson Beck is not as good as y'all want him to be. He's a good quarterback. He's not as good as y'all want him to be. He's not one of the best quarterbacks in the country. All right? He has one of the best rosters in the country. He's not one of the best quarterbacks in the country. He goes as far as his roster and his teammates take him, not the other way around. Carson Beck should never be put in the same sentence as Quinn Ewers again. All right? And Georgia does not have the weapons offensively that Texas, Bama, Ole Miss, and Ohio State have when I watch those teams play. They don't get the separation that those teams get from defensive backs and in games that the top offenses in America have. And like I said, when they don't have the defense and the depth on defense, there's going to be a team that they run into like Texas, like Alabama in 2 weeks after this bye week, like Alabama, that's able to stand up to the physicality of Georgia and pressure them offensively. Alabama's going to pressure them vertically with Ryan Williams, the fucking superstar. They're going to pressure them in the running game with Jalen Milroe and that running back group. That Alabama offensive line is playing like they were supposed to play a year ago. They're playing really good. That looks like one of the best offensive line units in America as far as these eyes are concerned through the first 3 games of the season. And Jalen Milroe, Kalen DeBoer, I'm going to talk about them in a little bit, but he's being put in position to succeed. He's playing at a very high level, and Kalen DeBoer is going to keep putting him in the best position to succeed. So Georgia's got a lot of shit to figure out, and they don't have 12 weeks to figure it out this season. The elephant in the room on Georgia is year in, year out for the last decade. The SEC East has been down. Florida's been down. Tennessee has been down. And these Kentucky teams with really good defenses and lackluster, mediocre, bullshit offenses, Mickey Mouse-ass, scary-ass offenses, is the toughest games that they've played on their schedule. Every now and then a Missouri will take them to the brink and things like that. And they have 12 weeks to work out the kinks of their offense or whatever they're struggling with as a team to figure it out before they go play Alabama in the SEC championship. Well, this year you play Alabama in your 4th game of the year, first conference game. And then a few weeks after that, you play the number 1 team in America, the best offense in America, as far as I'm concerned, in the Texas Longhorns. All right, and then you play Ole Miss as well. Let's just look through their whole schedule. They got Alabama next. Then they got Auburn. Mississippi State's a joke. Then they got to go to Austin to play the number 1 team in America. 2 weeks after that, they play the second best team in the SEC, or one of the best teams in the SEC. I shouldn't call them that until they play a real college football team. They got to play at Ole Miss. Then they play Tennessee, who's a national title contender as far as I'm concerned. Very high on them. And then they finish against UMass and an in-state rival in Georgia Tech, who's nothing to sneeze at, especially in that rivalry game, which was very close a year ago. All right. So this isn't the Georgia schedule that they're used to having, and they don't have the depth that they're used to having. So call me remiss if you want to, and call me a dumbass if you want to, if I don't think that Georgia can just snap their fingers and figure this out this year. They got a bye week to get it figured out. As of today, I'm picking Bama to beat them in 2 weeks, and I don't really see anything that's going to change that between now and then. Carson Beck needs to take his play to another level, and they need to find something offensively because I don't think that they got the weapons on offense to threaten the best teams in the SEC, and they play most of the best teams, if not all of them, in the SEC. Let me pull it up one more time. They play the top 4 teams in the SEC as far as I'm concerned. And that's in Bama, Texas, Ole Miss, and Tennessee in no particular order. They got to figure it out, and they don't got a lot of time to do it. Let's move on. LSU, South Carolina. That was a great game, and it was a roller coaster of a game. South Carolina, there's no other way to describe it than they are who we thought they were. Dennis Green, they are who we thought they were, and you let them off the hook. If you want to crown them, crown their ass, but they are who we thought they were. South Carolina gave this game away. The epitome of giving a game away. All right, team stats. The one thing to look at, South Carolina's 3 turnovers to LSU's 2, and how costly those turnovers were. And then officiating was so bad in this game, just like it was across college football. More on that later, like I said. But they gave the game away. Now, LSU, on the other hand, they might have found the key to their offense in Caden Durham. 11 carries, 98 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He may be the key to fully unlock that offense in the passing attack that they've had with Garrett Nussmeier in the first few weeks of the season. Aaron Anderson, Kyron Lacey, and those boys. Mason, the dude in the NFL, Mason Taylor. They got a great passing attack. They got great pass protection along that offensive line. The offensive line hasn't been as elite as we thought it would be, but maybe with the running game coming into play in Caden Durham, shout out to Duncanville, Texas. Caden Durham looks like an absolute stud. Needs to be your starter. Needs to be your bell cow guy. That could be the key to unlock the LSU offense. And LSU swung in this game from that fan base going scorched earth on Brian Kelly, burning the boats, igniting a coaching search probably for Lane Kiffin, to now Brian Kelly bought some time and some roadway for him and that coaching staff and this LSU football team to say, hey, all of our goals are still on the table. We're 1-0 in SEC play. We can still make the playoffs with this football team. The roster's good enough. You got time now before you play Ole Miss 3 games from now. You got UCLA and South Alabama, which I think LSU should win both of these games. You got time now, and I think there's a bye week in between that. You got time now to work out kinks defensively, figure out what the fuck you're doing with Harold Perkins, fix that run defense as much as you possibly can, week in, week out, because listen, I don't think this coaching staff knows who their team is yet, and that's okay. That's not a shot at the coaching staff, and that's not a shot at LSU. There was more problems to fix than some LSU fans or just college football fans want to look at, right? I think that we're thinking year 4 under Brian Kelly, this should be the time. He went to the SEC championship year 1. I think they masked a lot of, what should I call it? What you may call irreparable issues at times with ungodly quarterback play from Jaden Daniels and that offensive run that they had these last 2 years, beating Alabama on the road, going to the SEC championship. That covered up all the shit and what Brian Kelly still had to build on before they could truly be championship contenders. And they're probably still a year from that, but they're not a year. I don't think this LSU team should have blowouts on their schedule. And the resiliency of that team that you saw on Saturday, the perseverance to stick in that game when it felt over at times, and they could have completely crumbled and folded defensively. When they were down 17-0, they went out and they got themselves a turnover. They went out and they started making plays. The offense responded, started scoring touchdowns. When they got turnovers, they capitalized on their turnovers. They got given an absolute gift on that pick 6 where they called the blindside block that wasn't a blindside block. Absolutely ridiculous call that changed the game. They would have lost the game. And if that call is made, we're having a different conversation. We're having a conversation about Brian Kelly's job. But now Brian Kelly is looking at starting the season 4-1 before he plays Ole Miss. And then he's got a very winnable game against Arkansas, very winnable game against A&M, plays Alabama, should dominate Florida, should beat Vanderbilt, and he'll beat Oklahoma this year. All right? So if you can win one, if you can upset an Alabama or an Ole Miss, one of those two, this is a very good season where you're in the playoffs. If you don't, I still don't think you get fired this year. So That's the beauty of this sport that we love. That's the beauty of the drama and the soap opera of college football. Was he was one terrible penalty away that went in his favor from having him being flat out on the hot seat this year to now he's not, and he's got some time to figure things out in Baton Rouge. South Carolina, that's a game you don't want to give away. Let's look at their schedule the rest of the year. The turnovers, the penalty to throw icing on the cake takes you from 3-0 to now you'll beat Akron, but then you play Ole Miss, Bama, Oklahoma, A&M, and finish the year with Missouri and Clemson, 2 of the last 3 games of the year. All right? I don't know how they finish this season. I don't know if they finish with more than 7 wins or not, but that's a game you give away that'll haunt you the rest of the year and even into the offseason, and you just can't do that. The atmosphere was electric. You come out as hot as you could. Frank Beamer's there to watch his son. Everything you could ask for, and you just gave it away, and that is just dejecting. Ole Miss might beat the piss out of them here in a few weeks. I don't know. The pass rush is really good. The run defense is not. Maybe it's Caden Durham that accessed the running game at LSU, and maybe their run game is just way better the rest of the season. That's a true possibility, but it was bad up until this game, and it was good versus South Carolina, and you gave a game away, and there's not going to be a lot of games that are as winnable as that one on your schedule. So that's tough for South Carolina and good for LSU. Let's move on to Wisconsin, Alabama. This game went the way a lot of us thought it would, but as soon as Tyler Van Dyke went down, this game was over, and Wisconsin's season was pretty much over. Braden Locke, the freshman out of Rockwall, he showed some promise and some zip on his balls, but he missed a lot of throws, multiple touchdowns that would have made this a lot closer than it was. The score doesn't necessarily show it because Wisconsin got into scoring territory quite a few times. They got receivers open down the field quite a few times, and they just didn't execute on the plays. That's on them. Not on Alabama stopping them. But this Alabama team, like I said, number 4 in the country, I think that they could beat Georgia here in a few weeks. Absolutely. Jalen Milroe and Kalen DeBoer is going to be very good. He was 12 of 17 for 196 and 3 touchdowns with an 89.9 QB rating. Rushing-wise, he had 14 carries, 75 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So that's 5 total touchdowns. That's a Jalen Milroe stat line that you should be in love with all season long at Alabama. If you're able to be efficient, throwing the ball down the field, taking your shots off of the running game, off of him running the ball and your running backs, who had a great game. Jam Miller, 9 carries for 71 yards. He averaged 7.9 a carry against a Big Ten defense. The rest of the running backs filled in situational spots, had 181 total rushing yards on 34 carries. As a team, averaged 5.3 yards per carry. That's including a Ty Simpson sack that hurt the numbers a little bit. That's what you want your offense looking like. They're playing very efficiently under Kalen DeBoer, and he is consistently putting Jalen Milroe in positions to succeed. You're very happy with that. And last but not least, Ryan Williams is a generational, once-in-a-lifetime football player. This guy is 17 years old. He had 4 receptions, 78 yards, 19.5 a reception, 1 touchdown, 47 yards was his long. There are 3 games in his college football career. 6 foot tall, 175-pound, 17-year-old freshman. He is not old enough and not going to be old enough to vote in a month, but he has 10 receptions for 285 yards, 4 touchdowns, 28.5 yards per reception. Let's look at the Alabama schedule. Like I said, they got Georgia next on the docket line. They got a bye week, and then they got Georgia. I'm picking them to win that Georgia game. I don't think there's anything that can change that. They can win every game on their schedule after that. Even if they lose to Georgia, this is a team that looks like they may be a one-loss team when it's all said and done. They have a better roster than everybody on their schedule, and outside of maybe Tennessee. Maybe Tennessee. As of today, I would take Tennessee to beat Alabama in the 3rd Saturday of October. But other than that, I'm picking Bama to win every other game on their schedule. So go beat Georgia, and you're for sure going to be a playoff team, maybe an SEC championship team. Wisconsin, tough shit. That sucks, but you're still a year away, and it's good to learn about your team at times, even if it's a hard lesson. This was a lesson that needed to be learned in Wisconsin. It can cleanse you. Now you for sure know what you need to work on. You know what you need to bring in. You know what you need to attack in recruiting and everything else. And before you play the other good teams in your schedule, you know what you got to deal with. All right? And that's not the end of the world. Believe in Luke Fickell. Give him time and trust in him moving forward. All right, Florida A&M. 2 different stories here. Napier's done. Everybody knows it. He knows it. The administration knows it. The fan base knows it. The players on the roster know it. There's absolutely zero hope There's not a semblance of hope for that Florida football team. Florida has invested too much in their resources and recruiting resources and manpower and in everything else, facilities, everything that you could possibly ask for. They got at Florida. They're in a hotbed of talent in that state, and they are terrible. It's not acceptable by any stretch of the imagination, and quite frankly, Napier's had a longer leash than a lot of other good coaches that have done better than him at Florida. And so it's done for him and at Florida. And they got to do everything that they can to hold on to DJ Lagway and whatever good players that they do have on that team, because the rest of the SEC is going to come hunting for them, and they're probably going to take a lot of them. If A&M doesn't get consistent quarterback play this week from Marcel Reed beyond the Florida game, or from Connor Wagman when he comes back, that's a team that can come after Lagway, and there's many others that will. Not good. Not good at all at Florida. There's no light at the end of the tunnel right now. I think that right now, priority number one is Lane Kiffin. Do every single thing in your power to get Lane Kiffin to Florida. You hope that you can get him. If not, I don't know. But you got to figure it out, and you got to figure it out quickly. The Aggies on the other end had a QB change that sparked their offense. Looked a lot better than they've looked all year long. Is Marcel Reed the better option in that Colin Klein offense? A lot of Aggie fans seem to think so, and that's fair. Connor Wagman has done nothing to deserve a long leash, and this coaching staff didn't recruit him. They didn't choose him. It's not Colin Klein's guy. If they move forward with Marcel Reed, which I think they should at least for another week or two, and see how he plays against Bowling Green in Arkansas, that's your guy. Maybe it was just a system thing, because I think that defense is going to be very good this year, and maybe Marcel Reed sparks them to go on the run that they thought they would have before the season started. But we're going to find out. We'll find out sooner than later. They play Bowling Green, Arkansas, then the Missouri game is going to be a challenge. And then after that, they got LSU and, of course, Texas to end the year. But that's where we're at right now with A&M, and that's where we're at with Florida. Not too much else to talk about. And let's close this show on officiating this week, how awful it was. What happened was Tua Tagovailoa got a concussion on Thursday, and the college football world and the football world overcompensated, probably got on a conference call with officiating, and I'm not even joking when I say that, to make sure that they went over the top with penalties. That's happened way too many times over the last few years. Tua Tagovailoa got a concussion on a freak play. He hit his head against the knee of an opponent as he was falling to the ground, and it gave him a concussion. All right, overcompensating and destroying the integrity of our football game because it is dangerous and players get hurt sometimes is a big problem in college football. It's a problem in the NFL. It's a problem in high school football, where the officiating and whoever else is in charge, those of power over officiating and over football in today's game, they are trying to appease to the PTA moms of the world and the football nerds the stat nerds that know nothing about the physicality of this game because they never played it. It's as simple as this. This football game was never designed to be safe, and it's never going to be safe. If you want to make it safe, change the entire rule book and change the way that it's played. There is dirty tackles, and there is non-dirty tacklers. There's dirty plays, and there's just football. You need to be able to distinguish between what is dirty and what is just a football play and officiate it that way. And it should not be that hard to distinguish it. All right? It's outrageous. It's outrageous. There's no such thing as targeting. There's no such thing as targeting. It is a made-up rule as a PR move because Will Smith made a movie and a bunch of PTA moms that know nothing about the integrity of the physicality of this football game to appease to them and not to the great game of football that we have loved so many years, and we've loved it because of the physicality and the danger aspect of the game. The danger aspect is something as fans and as a former player and people that have played before at any level are attracted to, all right? And it's the risk that you take every time you play the game, and if that risk and the risk reward of playing this game is too strong for you, then you need to be able to not play the game or not watch the game, and that's okay. But overcompensating to appease the fans and people that know nothing about this game and nothing about the integrity of it has to stop, and it has to stop immediately. This was the Shonee Jackson Show. Thanks for tuning in. If you love it, please send it to a friend. It would help me tremendously. Like and subscribe. I love y'all more than you know, but not as much as you think. Thanks. Have a great week. I'll see you next time for the Prediction Show.